I know he had to depart, but I do want to recognise the wonderful and always warm welcome to country that was conducted by Uncle Madden. He's such a superstar in this part of the world, and I know that whilst he's welcoming us to country here, many of the things that we're talking about today are on Gabrogal and Durrig land, and I also want to recognise the traditional custodians of lands both here in which we meet, but also where we've all come from. It is a really exciting time to be involved in manufacturing in New South Wales and particularly across the country. And as I stand before you today here in Manufacturing Week and an opportunity to talk about the work that we're doing as a government, but with a particular focus on what's taking place in Western Sydney. Can I first and foremost say very clearly that I'm incredibly confident and optimistic about manufacturing here in New South Wales and the role that we'll play as a manufacturing nation. I want to reject the absolute proposition that manufacturing in our country and our state is dead. Every single day I see small, medium and large businesses innovating, creating new products, pivoting like everyone else did during the course of COVID, but importantly, recognising that they need to take their skill and expertise, place it in a part of the value chain where they can be competitive and engage internationally. To that end, manufacturing, from a New South Wales perspective, contributes around 30% of the national manufacturing output, and manufactured merchandise goods are still the #1 export out of New South Wales. These are important facts that we need to continue to remind people. The other thing that we're also seeing is the continuation of globalisation. I think we've all seen a bit of a reminder about how effective globalisation had been up until the pandemic, because we've all now been stretched with contracted supply chains, access to staff, but we've also recognised that it's the capacity to engage in much larger markets around the world that give our businesses here in Australia an opportunity to grow. And whilst our vision for manufacturing, and particularly advanced manufacturing in New South Wales, was established well before the pandemic, we've learnt a lot of lessons about how important it will be into the future and as our economy continues to recover and change in a post-pandemic world. If you think about where we sit today, a strong focal point for our focus on advanced manufacturing starts with the way we think about Sydney. And on a day, if you picked up the Sydney Morning Herald, where once again we are seeing people from the eastern half of the city criticise and challenge our thinking about Western Sydney, I stand before you to say clearly that Sydney needs to be a metropolis of 3 cities. We can't just be one giant metropolis blob with people living in detached dormitory suburbs in Western Sydney and all of the jobs located in Eastern Sydney. From the very early commitments from the Commonwealth Government to establish a new international airport in Western Sydney, we immediately took up the challenge to think differently about our city and our state. The Greater Sydney Commission established the concept of a metropolis of 3 cities, and it completely revolutionised the way we thought about infrastructure across Western Sydney. And I want to start here because I think connectivity is absolutely critical. Connectivity for workers to be able to access workplaces, connectivity for freight and logistics to be able to move products and goods from where they're manufactured to where they're consumed. International opportunities for engagement. Just start with this basic fact. If the region of Sydney from Parramatta to the Blue Mountains was a standalone city in any country in the OECD, it would be the only city in the OECD without an international airport. These things had to change many years ago, and they have. And we've set out a very clear vision through our 3 cities plan, which we then layered into our Aerotropolis plan and our plan for the Western Parkland City, to ensure that we weren't just creating new places where houses could be built, but we were creating new communities where houses and jobs coexist. Now, if you're presented with this challenge in 2020 or 2021 or 2022, the last thing that you want to do is attach the future growth of a city that you're designing largely from scratch on old industries. You want new industries, the concept of advanced manufacturing to be at the very genesis of our thinking. And that's what we established right from the start. Ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake that the very first building going into the Aerotropolis, the Bradfield City Centre, is an advanced manufacturing-focused building. It's also no mistake that the first major partner we wanted in that region was our National Research Institute, the CSIRO. These things are not happening by mistake. We recognise that we need to generate a clustering of activities, of minds and investments in this one internationally engaged and connected location. So I get to stand here before you to say that the very first announcement that we've made in the upcoming budget that will be released on the 21st of June is a $260 million commitment to the Advanced Manufacturing Research Facility, a new 15,000 square metre building that will be a facility for small, medium businesses, for researchers, for innovators, a location with shared infrastructure and shared equipment. We've modelled a lot of the work that we've done with the AMRF on the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre out of Sheffield in the northern part of England. Also a location that had significant government investment, both by the UK government and the European Union. We've taken the best of what we've seen in that part of the world, and we've created the Australian knowledge and know-how to make sure it's relevant here to our businesses. We've also started to reach out across the globe to create MOUs and partnerships with as many as 30 international and domestic businesses. And I've got no doubt that they will take up space inside the new AMRF, and that will form in many cases a beachhead for those businesses to invest more widely across Western Sydney. If you then think about the connectivity that we've invested in, a new investment in rail, a metropolitan rail line that will link the T1 Western Line at St Mary's, through the Bradfield City Centre, the airport, and around to the South West Rail Line at Leppington. In fact, in the most recent federal budget prior to the election, the federal government committed to the business case for the extension of the already funded rail line from the Bradfield City Centre around to the Glenfield connection. This means that people living in the northwest, the southwest can access this site by rail. This is a great location for people to be able to set up a place to work where future workforce has a choice on how they transport themselves from where they live to where they work. We've wanted to embed a great place to live and work in the same location. So the concept of conservation of land corridors, the conservation of waterways, is built into the DNA of the way we have constructed and will continue to design this city. We know that we need to be at the forefront of advanced manufacturing, precision manufacturing, defence and aerospace, and pharmaceuticals. If you add to that the capacity for us to think very differently about food and agri-tech, particularly from an export perspective, the opportunities in this part of the world, in my mind, are endless. Now, I say endless because they really belong to you, the innovators, the forward thinkers, where you will capture your own market opportunities. The role for government here is to set up the enabling infrastructure that gives you the confidence to invest in our communities. Now, we as a government will continue to refine our own procurement practices so we continue to be a good buyer. But ultimately, we want industries that are set up to service and engage in the private sector and also service and engage in international supply chains. Manufacturing in Australia can't be about a market that just has 27 million people in it. It must be a market that services 6 billion globally. That's where you'll generate economies of scale. That's where you'll generate the growth that you require. And that's where you'll take full advantage of the skilled workforce that you have here in New South Wales. We also recognise that we have to continue to disrupt our education system. It can't just be about the traditional form of TAFE and a traditional form of university. There must be a level of disruption that takes place for us to ensure that we're continuing to deliver the skilled workforce that we need to deliver on our advanced manufacturing objectives. And to this end, the NETM, or the new education training model, is also something that we've built in right from the very beginning. This is about creating micro-credentialing skills, stackable skills that can be modernised, upgraded and designed by industry, for industry, with our best educators, whether they be at the vocational level or the university level. We know that a 3-year course is often too long for you to be able to access the staff and the skills that you need. We also know that at TAFE or in the vocational training sector, you may not be able to move fast enough or rapidly enough to change and upgrade the skills of your workforce. So we're challenging both of those sectors to work with us. And I want to be able to say that the response has been exceptional. The establishment with Western Sydney University around our first micro-credentialing skills on precision manufacturing and 3D printing is already a reality today. This is not a pipe dream, we're doing it already. So we sit here at the start of today's conference, and I know that Sarah and Harley are going to take you through a lot more detail around the Advanced Manufacturing Research Facility. But our job as a government is to give you a strong sense of confidence about our commitment to advanced manufacturing, a clear and unwavering vision about our investment in infrastructure, a clear set of rules around planning, and a recognition that for many businesses that want to be able to scale and export their products, they probably simply won't be able to access the equipment they need to do that. So we'll deliver that equipment to you through the AMRF in a shared fashion. I'll finish where I began. I'm incredibly optimistic and confident about the future of manufacturing in this state. I've staked my political career on it. I've invested every ounce of my being into making sure that we create jobs of the future in Western Sydney, not just for people who choose to live and work in Western Sydney, but because it's the best place for us to make that investment. It's where the DNA of manufacturing exists in our nation, and it continues to be the heartbeat of our manufacturing industry. We're going to back that in big time, and there's no better way to do that than starting with the new $260 million, 15,000 square metre advanced manufacturing facility right in the heart of the Bradfield City Centre. Have a great day.